For a long time in my journey, I was just the victim of this big bad FA villain. I was just somebody who was cowering while FA took over. I'm trying to learn to see myself as not a victim, but a hero. Somebody who maybe gets down, gets beaten up, but somebody who doesn't lie back and let it happen. Somebody who actively takes a stand and fights back. And I think that goes for all of us in the FA journey.
Welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We believe life is about how we react. Hey, welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. My name is Sean. As always, I'm glad you're listening today. This episode is brought to you in part by Reata Pharmaceuticals. Kyle, happy Monday, I think. I don't know what day it is. Anyway, give us the latest update on your life and your Amazon journey.
A few weeks ago, I told a story about some sunglasses I bought on Amazon, and just to recap a little bit, I ordered these $200 sunglasses, and they never came. So I got a letter from the police department, and I called the detective. They didn't give me the sunglasses back. It turns out they were found with a bunch of other packages. I got my money back from Amazon that time. I reordered the sunglasses, and that's where the story ended last time. They hadn't come by the time we recorded, and they still hadn't come the next day. So Amazon gave me my money back again. Then the glasses showed up the next day. So I got these $200 glasses for free.
Nice. They do look really good. You wear them well.
Thank you, my friend.
Does Amazon, are you supposed to tell, hey, I actually got them? Like, is there responsibility on the user for that or no?
I don't know, but I guess I'm not going to look into it unless they say
I'm not saying you
something, right?
should.
I mean, they have the tracking number.
Yeah.
They know that they got delivered, right?
Huh?
So, I mean, they could be like, I don't know, if there's a knock on my door. I don't... See, the other thing is, like, I'm not sure Amazon is worried about $200.
Sure.
Where is that line, though, I wonder? You know, they're not worried about 200, but they're probably worried about, like, I don't know, 50,000 or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, yeah.
And I wonder who eats that. Amazon or the seller? Probably Amazon.
That's a good question.
Well,
Yeah, and that's probably why people sell on Amazon, right? Because they handle all the stuff. I think, like, I know, for example, for my book, they take, and I haven't made any money off my book, but I'm glad a lot of people have read it. It's super exciting. But anyway, the point is they take 30% right off the top of everything. That probably pays for all the service
Things
that
like
you get
that.
if you're a seller, and protection.
and I'm sure the key to success to anybody selling on Amazon is sheer volume.
Yeah.
You probably sell tens of thousands. That one pair may not make a difference.
Right. You're not selling on Amazon to sell like 15 of your
Sure.
products.
Although I will say a concept that we hear a lot in the grocery industry because the margins are a lot smaller than maybe on Amazon for a t-shirt or whatever. You don't make money until the very last one is sold.
Yeah.
Talking about a case of wine or a case of Cheerios, really no money is made until
Yeah.
you sell every single one. So there's that concept of just minding your P's and Q's throughout the entire process of selling. Back to Amazon and your situation of free glasses. You know, remember a couple of years ago, there was a lot of talk about how I was getting all these Amazon deliveries and packages just showing up on my front door. You know, I imagine there was a lot of money being lost somewhere.
Yeah.
But when I called and talked to Amazon, they were like, cool, do what you want with them. It was not worth their time or energy to look into it any further. They're like, if you want to keep them, if you like this stuff, keep them. Otherwise, throw them away. Like, we don't care what you do with them. Like,
well, and as I recall, there was a lot more than $200 worth of stuff at your place, right?
For sure. Yeah, some things were cheap and pretty lame, but there were some really big items that were probably high ticket as well. So,
hooray for my sunglasses and hooray for big business.
The following message is brought to you by Reata Pharmaceuticals.
Hey, Kyle, you would say that there's no time like the present, right?
Yeah, of course. And?
Well, you know, like, now is the time. Be in the now. The moment is now.
Yeah, I would say focusing on the now is pretty important. But what are you getting at?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I just want to let our community know that Skyclarys omavaloxolone 50 milligram capsules is now available.
Of course. The first and only FDA-approved prescription medicine for Friedreich ataxia in patients 16 years and older is now available.
So, if you or a loved one has FA, be sure to talk to your doctor to see if Skyclarys is right for you.
Now, dude. The time is now.
And to stay updated on all things Skyclarys, visit Skyclarys.com.
Before taking Skyclarys, tell your healthcare provider about your medical conditions and medicines you take. Skyclarys may cause serious side effects, including an increase in liver enzymes in your blood, increase in a blood protein which tells how well your heart is working, and changes in cholesterol levels. Your doctor will test these levels before and during treatment with Skyclarys. The most common side effects of Skyclarys include increased liver enzymes, headache, nausea, stomach pain, tiredness, diarrhea, and muscle pain. Call your doctor if you have any side effects. For additional information about Skyclarys, please see the full prescribing information and patient product information at www.skyclarys.com. This ad was brought to you by Reata Pharmaceuticals.
Kyle, I've got the quote for this week, which is inspired by our conversation we're about to share with listeners with Matt. And we talked a lot about responsibility, and of course you'll hear his theories in a few minutes. But it got me thinking, and I plugged in a few keywords, and the quote, although anonymous, is a bit of a punch in the gut for me. And it goes like this. Responsibility is accepting that you are the cause and the solution of the matter.
That's pretty powerful. Why did it feel like a punch in the gut, Sean?
The reality of it is, no matter what you're up against in life, there is a certain level of responsibility you have to take. Maybe not 100%. I think about the rare disease or a spinal cord injury or whatever may be out of your control. How we respond, how we react, how we live with it, how we move forward, how we X, Y, and Z, that's 100% in our charge. So even though taxes aren't our fault, how we manage our money and how we deal with those taxes and the liabilities we have, that's you're part of their cause and the solution for the matter. So it's just, I don't know, it's a realization that when I skip the gym or when I spend too much money at Starbucks or when I do this, the other, there's that realization that it's my fault. Wherever I'm at in life, it's my fault.
And you can get yourself out, right? That's the other thing it says. You're the solution. You can come up with the way to get out of that mess as well, or whatever it is.
There's two sides of the coin there. It's like, hey, take responsibility for where you're at, but also realize you are in control. You have the power to work toward whatever it is you want.
When relating it to rare disease, it's not fair. Absolutely, it's not fair that you or me or anyone else has to deal with FA or any other rare disease. However, if we find a way to take responsibility for it and own it, then maybe we can start working towards the solution. This is talking about responsibility and solution, but maybe you can't have the solution without the responsibility. Maybe that's a conversation for another time.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll say it again, just for, let it soak in, folks.
Yeah.
Responsibility is accepting that you are the cause and the solution of the matter. And according to the internet, that is written by somebody named Anonymous.
Oh, I've heard of that guy.
Yeah, he's very popular. Or she, they. Anyway, that is the quote of the week.
Do we have a treat for you today? We had a recent conversation with our friend Matt LaFleur. He was part of the team that originated this podcast, got it off the ground. He's a writer. He's a thinker. He is part of the FA community, and he's really encouraging to everyone around him, and we're so excited for this conversation. Here's Matt LaFleur. Matt, welcome to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you, Colin. It's awesome to be on here with you and Sean.
It's good to have you on again.
For a little review, tell everyone about yourself so we can get a little background on you.
I was writing as a contractor for Friedrich's Taxi News. I had a column that went out every so often, but eventually that evolved into a full-time position with FA News' parent company, BioNews. So I work there now. I serve as the Associate Director of Patient Engagement, which I love. It involves getting our rare disease patients all over the world involved in things like the business aspect of the company and things like that. So it's a really great fit for me, and I love being there, and I love what I do.
You still write your column too, right?
I do. I'm a monthly columnist, so yep. I'm alongside greats like Sean Baumstark and Harvey.
That's awesome, man. Congrats on the full-time work.
Oh, thank you, man.
And Matt, you have Friedreich's ataxia. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey with FA?
Before FA, I was a really active little boy, That was kind of the theoretical projection of my life. I was into every sport there was. I was from a family of really athletic people, so I assumed that was going to be my life. But with FA, I kept getting a little worse and worse at things like running, at things like balance, and eventually I had to quit playing sports altogether. And that was kind of a bummer for me. That was my life at the time, so it was like an identity crisis. I didn't know who I was anymore. FA eventually transitioned me into a wheelchair when I was 18. It just kept degrading from there. My our emotions aren't quite what I'd like them to be. My handwriting isn't up to par at all. Driving is kind of out of the question for me at this point. So, in many ways, I was just sitting around dealing with this heavy prognosis. And in turn, I was pretty unhappy with where I was at. And I had to think, man, is this what life is? Is this all that I have to look forward to? And I decided, being a hard headed, I guess, I decided, no, that's not it. There's more than that out there for me. So I kind of created more than that for me. I kind of reached out of my comfort zone and started things like public speaking like this. Spoiler alert, I'm actually an introvert. I don't like being loud, but here I am. And things that putting yourself out there is definitely uncomfortable, but it's so worth it. And it's kind of jumping off point. So eventually that transition to me taking a more active role, being more of a hero and less of a victim in my own story. That involved meeting you, Kyle, getting involved with Tara, getting a trike and riding a trike and getting more physically active and spreading the word, getting my column out there and talking to people and letting them know that, hey, you might be in this situation that you never asked for, but you shouldn't let that defeat you. You should keep on fighting, keep on moving forward. And that's what I hope to get across in my life, in my column, and everything I'm doing.
Matt, you introduced me to this concept of the hero's journey and how it applies to everyone, whether you see yourself as a hero or not, whether you have a rare disease or some other challenge. It really blew my mind when I started thinking, what? I could be a hero, or I am a hero despite FA or because of FA. That really changed my thinking about myself. And maybe that changes the way I present myself to the world and the way other people see me. Maybe just to back up a little bit, if you could tell us about this concept of how the hero's journey might relate to everyday people.
I have to say that the same thing happened to me. I would never have thought of myself that way, but it makes a lot of sense. What I tend to draw from is a counseling concept called narrative therapy. It's where you place yourself in the role of a character in fiction, maybe a superhero or maybe a mythological figure, something out there, because it allows you to think about yourself and your conflicts in a different outside perspective. I don't know about you guys, but the way I talk to myself is not the way I talk to everybody else.
That's probably true for all of us.
Absolutely. I don't think I'm the only one who's a lot harder on myself than
Right.
I would be to anyone else.
Yeah.
Narrative therapy, seeing yourself as a character in a play or in a movie, is a non-threatening way to apply concept to your life. I love the book A Hero with a Thousand Faces by
Mm.
Joseph Campbell.
Hmm.
He really outlined what the hero's path looks like. And he aligned that from all kinds of movies to books to mythological characters and showed that they all have a similar path. They all have a uncomfortable, inciting incident that sets them down the hero journey. They all have a major conflict that they cross in their journey, and they typically all have a resolution where they confront the conflict and go beyond that. So that really applies to me in my own life with FA. I see that as the inciting event and the conflict. We haven't conquered it yet, but I think we're getting closer, and I think one day we will. But in the meantime, we're on the journey. that is a good way for me to see it, and I hope that others can see it that way as well.
I think of the inciting incident, like you say, and that's a diagnosis. We're called to be more than what we might think we are. You use the example of Spider-Man sometimes. He's just a guy. But when he gets bit by that spider, he's called to be something a lot more. And holy cow, the diagnosis of FA calls us to be more. It's not there to destroy us, as we might think sometimes and might feel, but if you think about it this way, it's there to call us to a bigger thing in our lives. I think that's really powerful.
Absolutely, man. And I think you get into my major point. For a long time in my journey, I was just the victim of this big bad FA villain, I was just somebody who was cowering while FA took over and did everything. And I'm trying to learn to see myself as not a victim, but a hero. Somebody who maybe gets down, gets beaten up, gets prodded around by FA and what it entails. But somebody who doesn't lie back and let it happen. Somebody who actively takes a stand and fights back. And I think that goes for all of us in the FA journey.
Absolutely.
Hearing Kyle talk about Spider-Man, I think about in the film, the films, there's a level of responsibility put on Peter Parker. I wonder, do you think there is a level of responsibility on people that are faced with such a diagnosis to not be a victim? What would you say to somebody that says, you know what, I don't feel the need to be a hero. I'm just gonna sit back.
I would say, first of all, I completely understand where you're coming from. I completely understand how you feel trampled upon by whatever you're going through, because I've been there. The one thing I would say to that is that feeling like a victim for me, it really sucked. It was really hopeless. It made me feel like there was no rhyme or reason to anything I was going through. But it wasn't until I was a victim, until I took responsibility, that I was able to see that there is something I can do, that I can move beyond this diagnosis.
It's perfectly reasonable, and everyone has every right to feel a victim, right? And we all do at times, for sure. But like you said, it doesn't serve you. It doesn't serve those around us. So anything we can do to pull ourselves out of that place, no matter how hard it is definitely worth doing.
I do want to also voice that FA is a terrible, terrible, terrible diagnosis. I think us three, in a certain sense, are pretty lucky because we don't have serious ongoing health issues right now. But there are many people in the FA world and in general who have acute problems, who feel trampled and feel like they can't handle what's going on with them. And I want to give voice to that and let them know that that's okay. That it's not about you being strong enough to handle it. It's about you taking responsibility of what's going through your life. Taking responsibility for yourself.
Couple episodes ago, Sean mentioned that he was listening to a podcast and they were talking about the fact that one of the most important things is just to recognize your disease, your condition, your challenges for everything they are. And like you said, Matt, take responsibility for that and be like, all right, this is what I was dealt. This is what I'm going to move forward with. It's really, really hard, but just recognizing it for what it is.
The hand you've been dealt isn't always picture perfect. It's not what you want. I don't think it's ever what you want, but it's all about how you play it.
If we go further into the hero's journey, beyond the inciting incident, beyond the spider bite, how do other parts of the hero's journey relate to us as rare disease patients, as rare disease warriors or heroes?
Especially in the FA journey, I don't think we can ever reach the resolution phase.
Mm,
I don't think we'll ever get over FA currently. No, without a cure. But that isn't hopelessness. That doesn't mean we should give up. In fact, the hero journey isn't a path forward. It's more like a cycle. The inciting event, like you say, Kyle, can be the diagnosis, but it may not be the only inciting event. We may feel like we're back at the beginning, like when we adapt to a new walking aid, or if we find out that driving isn't for us anymore, or other complications like that. So we may feel like we're back at the beginning and man, I should be better than this. I should be past this. But that isn't reality. Reality is you're still a hero. You're on the path. You're on the journey. That's what happens. It's a cycle. So the hero journey is not first you do this, then you do this. You
right.
can be back at the beginning a bunch. And
Yeah.
that's okay. That doesn't mean you're a failure. But as you move beyond the inciting event and you face your conflict head on, I think that there's growth in there. And I think that you'll be better for that and going through that.
We think of the resolution as maybe FA is gone, like cured or something like that. But you say it's a circular thing and you go back to the beginning, but also maybe you reach multiple resolution moments as well, right? Like there are incremental things, there are breakthroughs that you're like, wow, this is something that I faced head on and I conquered. All right, maybe FA isn't gone, but I know how to be a better person. I know how to get myself out of a dark place if I need to. And so that could be your resolution.
That's a brilliant concept, man. Like I've been talking about all along, the idea of being a victim or of being a hero. I think that you can be at a place where you resolve that, where there can be something, a win in the check box. So even though FA is still there, you have conquered that aspect of your life. And I think that's powerful. And that's a little victory. Yeah. Yeah, that's a plug.
The resolution is going to look different and be different for everybody, depending on what's important to them in life or what they're pursuing. Because, like I said, FA or whatever the diagnosis might be may not go away easily or anytime soon, but they can still be a great parent, or they can still be a
Mhm.
great husband or wife or friend or employee or whatever they're doing.
And like you guys always say in the podcast, like FA isn't the extent of who you are. Whether or not FA is cured, I hope it is. But whether or not, that's no excuse for us not to live a great life, not to be proud of who we are and where we've gone.
Matt, you joked that it was a little plug, and I happen to know the title of your column, but explain the little plug you just gave. Share with our listeners where they can read more what's going on in that pretty head of yours.
Thank you, man. Little Victories is the name of my column. So if you go to Friedrichs Detective News and look up the column Little Victories, that is my thoughts. So that will be all about things like we're talking about right now. What life with the Bay looks like from a philosophical, psychological, literary perspective. I'm all about that. I'm a nerd.
Can you explain a little bit where the title comes from?
There is a song that's called Little Victories by a singer named Matt Nathanson. Just listening to that song, it made me think about how I viewed myself as a victim, as a failure, but that everything I was going through wasn't exactly a failure, but it could be a little victory and something I could grow off of. And that really stuck with me. And that became a motto for me that every thing wasn't a big failure, little victory. And that's how I saw life.
I love it. Great way to consider the way you live your life. I like that.
Thank you. I was proud to speak at the FA Symposium. I presented with my two awesome co-presenters, Elizabeth Hamilton and Jean Walsh. Elizabeth talked more about self-regulating, being okay with where you are, being steadfast with where you are, in this chaotic concept of life with FA. And you guys know how chaotic they can be. And I think most of our listeners can. And even if it's not FA, you guys know how life is full of ups and downs. So it's key to be okay with where you're at and to modify your mood and your emotions with what you're going through. So Beth talked about that. Jean talked about the concept of relationships, especially relationships with medical professionals like doctors, which is something we all have to be attentive to. And we all have to pay attention to how we are in those relationships. And also the concept of friendships with FA, because that's so vital and that's so rarely talked about. But the idea of friendships is phenomenal. I know for me, it wasn't until I started making other friends in the FA community that I really felt like, man, I am not alone. There are other people going through the same stuff I'm going through.
You used Spider-Man as your metaphor. So how did they relate those topics using mythical characters?
We were all going to pick a different superhero, and that was going to be our thing. But Jean said that she's not a superhero person, which I understand. Some people are cool, but Jean ended up choosing Legolas from Lord of the Rings. Maybe I spoke too soon with the cool, but Legolas from Lord of the Rings. And Beth chose Alice from Alice in Wonderland. Legolas represented the relationships and how friendship was super vital to the hero's journey. When you think of the movie Lord of the Rings, Legolas probably isn't the number one hero of that movie, but he was a constant companion and sidekick to what's going on. And Alice from Alice in Wonderland, like Beth being the parent of an FA child, is suddenly thrown into this world where nothing makes sense. Nothing is how she thought it would be. So I had to figure out how to be okay with where you are is really relevant to Alice and really relevant to Beth. And I think relevant to all of us.
When I do read fiction, it's amazing what you take out of it. It all relates to your own life because you're allowed to just apply it however it makes sense in your own mind. And I love these metaphors that you guys used in your presentation because we can all take them and apply them to aspects of our lives that make sense to us.
It all goes back to the idea of narrative therapy. I think that is a great way to get psychological help when you may not even be looking for it. You may not even need it. Everything is a way to find something useful to get help from. I think this podcast that you guys are doing is a fantastic way to do that. You guys aren't fiction, you aren't using narrative therapy, but you guys are giving advice and making the rare disease world real to people and showing that it's not defeating. And I really applaud y'all for that, and y'all are doing a great job.
Thanks, Matt.
I know I am going to look at movies and books a little bit differently now and really work on placing myself as the hero or as the main character in these situations and seeing how that applies to my life with FA and my life overall. Matt, thank you so much for sharing with us your perspective today.
I'd be happy to talk about whatever movies you see and stuff with you.
You're on. Sean, self-perception is a huge part of life. And I think it's an even bigger factor when dealing with a rare disease. I love the way Matt framed this in the hero's journey, thinking about ourselves as heroes because of our rare disease. I think that's so powerful.
Yeah, great concept, and I appreciate Matt coming on and sharing a little bit of his thought process with us.
Speaking of appreciation, we like to show gratitude at the end of every episode. Who do you have to thank today?
My thank you note is going out to my Subaru dealer. I do take my car in for service with the dealership, Lasher's Elk Grove Subaru. My service advisor, his name is Mike Murphy. He's become a bit of an acquaintance or a friend over the years. We actually used to live in the same apartment complex years ago. So we've just kind of stayed connected, and I'm always happy to take my car in and interact with Mike. He always takes good care of me and my vehicle. So thank you, Mike, and Lasher's Elk Grove Subaru.
My thank you note goes out to my mom's cousin, Fred, and his wife, Lucy. I was down in Florida for the Farrah Energy Ball, and the day after the ball, before I flew out, Fred and Lucy drove up. They drove like 4 hours just to have brunch with us. This is my grandfather's sister's son.
Wow.
And I've kind of always heard their name. They lived in New York for a while, and he was a policeman for a town right outside of New York. He's like, it might as well have been New York City. We had brunch with them, and they told some stories. We talked about my grandpa. Fred looks like my grandpa. It was just kind of fun to remember and to feel connected to family that I've been hearing about. They made the effort to drive up to see us and really appreciate that. So thank you to Fred and Lucy.
That is pretty cool. I'm glad they made the drive just to have brunch with the guys.
This episode is made possible in part by Reata Pharmaceuticals. Thank you to Matt LaFleur for being on and sharing his perspective with us today. Go to twodisableddudes.com, find the show notes for this episode. You can find a link to a virtual event that's going on November 1st. It's from FA News, and Matt is going to be one of the panelists on that virtual event, along with some experts and another patient. So check that out. If you like what you hear, please share and subscribe on your podcast app. Until next time, keep living with urgency. Thank you for listening to the Two Disabled Dudes podcast. This show is possible with your support. Visit twodisableddudes.com to donate.
Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app.